The average child will spend around 14,000 hours in school. That's 14,000 hours that I spent learning how to think, how to analyze, how to remember. I was taught how to calculate the third side of a triangle and label every single part of a cell. But then when it came to understanding my emotions, that part I had to figure out on my own. I was never taught what to do when anxiety showed up, or when sadness became present, or even when anger overwhelmed me. Like most people, I grew up as a very well-trained thinker, but as a complete emotional noob. And so as a result, it's no wonder that I became an overthinker, because overthinking is actually underfeeling. It's our way of trying to think our way out of situations because we don't trust ourselves to handle the uncomfortable emotions or feelings that might show up if things don't go our way. It's basically our mind's way of protecting us from what we don't feel safe to feel. So in this video, I'm not going to show you how to fix your emotions, but I'm going to show you how to change your relationship to them. Because when you do that, you also get to change your entire relationship to life. So last week, I was in a cafe when someone's baby started crying, and I'm talking like real proper red-faced howling. And so I remember looking at the parents who were visibly a bit embarrassed, and I also saw a few judging looks from the table next to them. I also noticed an older man in the corner who was huffing and puffing and mumbling under his breath. But then I looked at the baby, and the baby wasn't making this mean anything. She wasn't ashamed of crying. She wasn't worrying about what people might think of her. She wasn't telling herself a story that I'm weak or I'm dramatic. She was just feeling the emotion fully and just letting it out. And so that's how we all started. As babies, we were just pure emotions. We would cry, we would laugh, we would rage and move on, but all within 5 minutes. And there was no filter, there was no shame, there was no judgment. But then, somewhere along the way, that changed, and we started hearing things like, don't cry, or calm down, or be strong. And so we learned that, some feelings were good or acceptable, whereas other feelings made people feel uncomfortable. As a result, we start trying to hold the bad ones in and only show the good ones. And when that doesn't work, well, we start to lose trust in our emotions altogether. And so this is when the mind steps in and says, don't worry, I got this. And suddenly you start analyzing, you start predicting, you start overthinking, and you do this so that you can always stay one step ahead of the discomfort that you don't want to feel. So you replay conversations, you plan every possible outcome, you try to think your way into safety. But the mind was never designed to process emotions. It was just designed to think. So when it tries to handle feelings, it just ends up looping because, you can't think your way out of sadness. You can't think your way out of fear. So while the mind is trying to protect you, it's doing a job that it was never meant to do in the first place. The real work isn't to control your emotions, it's to change the relationship you have with them. And one of the first ways of doing this is to realize this, that your mind is to your emotions what a parent is to a child. So, for example, when a child is crying, the appropriate response isn't to yell at them and tell them to stop crying. Instead, you want to get down to their level, you look them in the eyes and you say, it's okay, I'm here. And so that's also your job with your own emotions. So when fear shows up, you don't want to fight it, or when sadness comes, you don't need to fix it, or when anger rises, you don't need to shame it. You just meet it with presence and say, I see you and you're safe here. But then, just like a loving parent, you also don't let the child decide what happens next. So you listen, you acknowledge how they feel, and then you just gently lead them forward. And that's the same relationship you want with your own emotions. You don't want to ignore them. You don't want to drown in them, but you want to integrate them. You let them be a part of the moment, but without letting them take control over you. And that's also how you develop more self-trust or trust in yourself, because you're no longer being run by your emotions, and instead you become in a relationship with them. And so another way of changing how you see your emotions is to realize that they actually each have a role. So for example, fear is there to protect you. Anger is there to show you your boundaries. Sadness helps you heal. And joy reminds you that you're alive. And so your emotions and feelings are not enemies, they're messengers. And when you stop fighting them, well, they stop fighting back, which is when your mind finally gets to rest. So even though nobody ever taught us how to feel, it's never too late to learn. And to do that, you don't have to become someone new. You just have to remember who you were before the world told you to hide your emotions. And the best part is that when you eventually feel safe to feel, well, then overthinking dissolves on its own, which is where real freedom begins. And if you want more tips on how to quit overthinking, check out this next video here. Much love.